So in 2020, 18 million people well, they simultaneously vanished from the internet.
Yeah, completely gone.
Right. And they didn't lose power. Their servers didn't crash. They actually went dark on purpose. They staged one of the largest digital labor strikes in, honestly, modern publishing history, just completely cutting off the supply chain to a predatory ecosystem.
Massive.
It really was. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a phenomenon operating right under your nose. Because, if you think of Reddit as simply a forum for arguing about movies or, like, scrolling through memes, you are missing a massive, multi-million-dollar transmedia engine, one that has completely re-engineered the economic and structural models for horror and occult literature.
We are pulling our insights today from a really comprehensive June 2026 analysis document. It was generated for Savant Narrative Systems in Jeweltown, and it's titled simply Reddit and Horror Writing.
Which is a great title. Very to the point.
Exactly. But we aren't just, summarizing spooky stories today. We're analyzing the mechanics of it all. We're looking at how digital architecture physically forces new legal frameworks into existence.
Right.
How it creates entirely new publishing pipelines and somehow manages to bypass the massive retail algorithms that usually dictate what you are actually allowed to discover online.
And to really get into that, we have to start with the incubation chamber itself, the subreddit known as nosleep. According to the source document, this space launched way back in 2010.
Which is ancient in internet years.
Oh, totally. And it now has over 18 million members, just sitting comfortably in the top 50 most popular subreddits on the entire platform. But the sheer volume of users isn't actually the interesting part.
No, it's the structure.
Right. The structural rule that governs the whole space, which is this immersive, this is real framing. Authors basically have to write their horror stories as if the events actually happened to them.
Yeah. First person, totally serious.
And the commenters must respond as if they believe it is 100% real. Now, okay, let's unpack this because I struggle with this a bit.
How so?
Well, on the surface, forcing everyone to just play along in the comments, it sounds like a novelty roleplay, like an open mic campfire. Does that gimmick actually change the reader's relationship to the text compared to, say, just picking up a standard Stephen King novel?
What's fascinating here is that it fundamentally alters the epistemology of the reading experience.
The epistemology?
Yeah, how we know what we know about the text. Think about it. When you hold a Stephen King novel, the physical book itself acts as a boundary.
Right, you've got the physical object in your hands.
Exactly. The cover, the publisher's logo, the barcode on the back, they all provide the sort of psychological safety net. You are a passive observer consuming a manufactured piece of fiction.
Because it's literally labeled fiction.
Right. But on Reddit, the user interface collapses that boundary completely.
Yeah.
You were reading this terrifying account of someone being stalked in their home, and the browser tab right next to it is, your actual banking tab or your work email.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The text is sharing the exact same visual real estate as your actual mundane life.
So the medium itself just quietly removes the fiction label.
It does. And then the comment section just becomes an extension of the narrative text.
Right, because everyone is playing along.
The UI elements like the upvote scores, the timestamp showing the author replied to a panicked comment just like 3 minutes ago, it all simulates real-time urgency.
You aren't just reading a story anymore.
You are an active participant in a shared real-time crisis. You are basically monitoring a live situation.
Which is incredibly gripping.
Extremely. And from a business perspective, forcing that level of immersion built a highly engaged ecosystem. It proved an entirely new model for independent creators.
So you publish your fiction for free in this visceral environment.
You build a massive following who feel emotionally invested in your immediate physical survival.
Right.
And then you convert that intense engagement into commercial IP.
And the pipeline for that conversion is just fascinating because, going viral with a free story doesn't automatically pay your rent.
Unfortunately not.
Right. So the source document gives us this perfect mechanical case study for this with a user named 1000 Vultures. They write this serialized story called Pen Pal, and the subreddit just absolutely erupts. The hype is massive.
People were obsessed with it.
Obsessed. But rather than just, enjoying the internet points, they funnel that massive audience directly into a Kickstarter campaign. The goal was to expand Pen Pal into a physical novel.
And they raised over $15,000.
Yeah. which then secures a traditional publishing deal. Now, my initial reaction to that was just confusion, because if an audience just spent weeks reading pen pal for free on their phones, the incentive to pay $15,000 for the exact same text seems completely non-existent.
Well, that assumes the audience is paying for the text.
They aren't.
They aren't. They are funding a community milestone. And this is a vital psychological shift for anyone studying modern transmedia ecosystems.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. When a reader has spent a month interacting with an author, leaving comments, warning them not to go into the basement, and, theorizing with thousands of other readers, they develop a profound sense of ownership over that story's success.
Oh, I see. It's almost like an act of patronage.
Exactly.
Buying the physical book is like buying a concert t-shirt. You already heard the music for free. The shirt is just a physical artifact proving you were part of that cultural moment.
That is a perfect way to look at it. They are acquiring a trophy of the experience.
Yep.
And that drive to capture the energy of the subreddit didn't stop at physical books either.
Right. It bled directly into audio production.
Big time. The No Sleep podcast is a massive weekly anthology now, but it originated purely as a user proposal. Someone in the community essentially just said, hey, we have all this incredible text. What if we applied audiobook-style narrations to the top posts?
And it became a total kingmaker in the industry. I mean, the document specifically highlights authors like Gemma Moore, who actually launched their traditional publishing careers not by, querying agents, but by responding to open submission calls for the No Sleep podcast.
It functions as this amazing self-reinforcing industrial loop. The subreddit community generates the raw narrative material.
Right.
Then the podcast filters and elevates the best of that material with professional voice acting, sound design, all of that.
Which makes it more accessible.
Exactly. That polished audio product reaches a wider mainstream audience who then track the stories back at the original subreddit.
Swelling the community numbers.
Yep, and inspiring the next generation of writers to start posting. It is basically a perpetual motion machine for independent intellectual property.
But, and this is a big but, that exact intense sense of community ownership, the same force that funded the Kickstarter and fueled the podcast, creates a massive vulnerability.
It really does.
Because when millions of people feel they own a communal space, the boundaries of actual legal copyright start to blur, especially to outsiders. And this is where the sheer scale of Reddit attracted a totally different kind of machine.
You were talking about the automated content extractors.
Yes.
As the stories on nosleep became undeniably popular, an entire secondary industry noticed. YouTube narrators and automated text-to-speech or TTS pipelines realized they could just scrape these highly upvoted stories.
Just take them right off the page.
Right, run them through algorithmic voice synthesizers and monetize the resulting videos with ad revenue. They were lifting massive amounts of fiction without ever crediting, let alone compensating, the original authors.
It's like someone's setting up an industrial bottling plant downstream from a community well and then just selling that water back to the public. I mean, they aren't contributing to the well. They are just strip mining the resource because it's sitting out in the open. Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Digital strip mining is exactly the right term. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, before this conflict, the prevailing assumption in broader internet culture was that if a piece of text was posted on a public message board, it was effectively public domain, or fair use.
Which is wild to think about now.
Right. The algorithms didn't see copyrighted authors working on their craft. They just saw an endless free data set.
And because there is no centralized legal department for a subreddit, the townspeople essentially had to form a posse to defend the well. The moderators of nosleep didn't just complain about it, they built an infrastructure.
A really robust one, too.
Yeah. They created 3 entirely new, separate subreddits strictly dedicated to educating their millions of users on the nuances of copyright law, and organizing mass reporting campaigns for DMCA violations against these TTS channels.
It was a remarkable display of decentralized administration, just people organizing themselves. But the education campaign alone wasn't enough to stop the automated pipelines, which led to the event you mentioned at the very start of our deep dive. In 2020, the nosleep community orchestrated a week-long blackout.
They restricted the entire subreddit.
18 million users locked out.
It was a digital labor strike. By shutting down the forum, they completely choked off the raw material that the TTS algorithms needed to survive.
And the mechanical impact of that strike cannot be overstated. They forced platform policy changes. They demanded the enforcement of existing DMCA laws that, honestly, YouTube and Reddit had been pretty sluggish to act on.
Because it was easier to just look the other way.
Exactly. The blackout drew a definitive line in the sand. It established a cultural and legal precedent that user-generated fiction on an open forum is fully protected, copyrighted intellectual property. That grassroots fight laid the groundwork for how independent online fiction is protected today.
Wow. Okay, so while this massive fiction ecosystem was fighting automated algorithms and literally writing its own legal precedents, the nonfiction side of the platform was quietly solving a completely different structural problem.
Yes, the blind spots of modern retail algorithms.
Right. Let's pivot from the horror fiction into the actual occult and esoteric communities, because this is fascinating.
The nonfiction subreddits operate on a very different architectural model, but they are equally vital to the publishing industry. When we look at communities like occult, witchcraft, or our paranormal, we are not looking at fiction incubators.
No.
We are looking at specialized reader communities.
And according to the 2026 Savant Narrative Systems document, these esoteric spaces function as an organic discovery engine, one that completely bypasses the traditional gatekeepers, specifically the recommendation algorithm of Amazon.
Right. And to understand why that bypass is so incredibly valuable, you have to look at how retail algorithms actually function. Systems like Amazon rely heavily on collaborative filtering.
That's the people who bought this item also bought that item mechanism, right?
Exactly. And that algorithm is fundamentally designed to push broad mass market appeal. It wants to find the absolute shortest path between a generic buyer and a blockbuster product.
Which makes sense for Amazon.
It does. But if you are an independent esoteric publisher like Llewellyn, Crossed Crow, or Wiser Books, you are producing hyper-niche material. You are publishing translations of obscure grimoires, deep dives into localized folk magic, or, highly specific paranormal history.
And because the audience for a specific grimoire translation is so isolated, it breaks the chain of collaborative filtering. The algorithm looks at the niche book and has no idea what else to recommend, so it basically just hides it. The algorithm is structurally blind to the esoteric market.
Precisely. The algorithmic penalty for being specialized is invisibility.
That's a great way to phrase it. Invisibility.
So these independent publishers and their readers just abandon the retail algorithms entirely and rely on the subreddit architecture.
How does that look in practice?
Well, say a user in Witchcraft posts a detailed, critical review of a new Crossed Crow release on traditional folk magic. Because the community is already self-selected for that exact interest, that single post sparks a deep, highly technical discussion.
Right, everyone chiming in.
Suddenly, hundreds of highly targeted readers bypass the Amazon homepage completely, follow a direct backlink, and buy the book. It is word-of-mouth discovery scaled to an industrial level, completely sidestepping the retail gatekeeper.
It also provides an incredible feedback loop for the creators themselves. The source document notes that regional subreddits, like New Orleans or Haunted Places, act as a raw research pipeline.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are an independent Gothic horror writer or an occult researcher, you can just monitor these active spaces to find localized legends or track the specific historical details that actual residents care about. It essentially functions as ambient market intelligence.
And ambient market intelligence is a crucial concept here. It is far superior to traditional market research. I mean, a publisher could spend thousands of dollars on a traditional focus group, but the data is inherently flawed.
Because of the Hawthorne effect?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The moment participants sit in a room with a moderator,
Behind a two-way mirror? Yeah.
right, the Hawthorne effect kicks in. They know they are being observed, so they subconsciously alter their responses. They rationalize their opinions, or they just say what they think sounds intelligent to the person with the clipboard.
But on a platform like Reddit, you are utilizing sentiment scraping. You are observing organic, unvarnished passion. By watching which tropes get downvoted into oblivion and which obscure historical details generate massive upvote momentum, a creator is seeing the true, unfiltered demands of the audience.
You are watching the audience talk to each other, not to a marketing executive. And that raw data allows solo creators to punch way above their weight class, giving them the kind of market targeting that used to require a massive corporate budget.
Okay, so if we synthesize all of this, Reddit's architecture can launch a multi-million-dollar transmedia property like Penpal. It has the collective power to stage a labor strike and choke off predatory AI pipelines. And it serves as the ultimate algorithmic bypass for esoteric publishers to find their true audience through ambient market intelligence.
It's a powerhouse.
It really is. Given that staggering track record, it feels like the logical conclusion is that every single independent writer in the horror or occult space should just immediately dump their entire portfolio onto Reddit.
That is the assumption many creators make, and it is a massive strategic trap.
Really? Okay, let's explore that. Why does this system fail for some creators if the audience is just so massive?
Because audience size is irrelevant if your narrative architecture clashes with the platform's digital architecture.
Hmm.
As we analyze with nosleep, the platform intensely rewards a very specific aesthetic.
Right, the first-person immediacy.
Visceral pacing, short-form delivery. The entire user interface is designed for the quick scroll. It rewards the cliffhanger ending that compels a user to click to the next update before they close the app.
Right, it's designed for impact, not necessarily patience.
Imagine you are a creator writing a sweeping historical Gothic horror novel. You have dense, layered world-building, intricate, period-accurate research, and a very slow-burn narrative tension.
Sounds great, actually.
It does, but if you post that on nosleep, it will likely be buried instantly. Not because the writing is poor, but because it violates the structural expectations of the room. It is simply the wrong environment.
So where do they go?
For that kind of patient, immersive architecture, a creator must look at platforms designed for long-form reading. Places like Royal Road, Amazon's Kindle Vella, Substack, or dedicated podcast serialization, those structures actually support deep immersion over a prolonged period.
So, what does this all mean? It comes back to matching the shape of your story to the shape of the container. If you are listening to this and building your own intellectual property, the takeaway is that you cannot force a square peg into a round hole just because 18 million people are looking at the round hole.
Exactly.
Reddit might be your discovery layer or your ambient research pipeline or your community hub, but it does not have to be the primary publication venue for everything you create.
This raises an important question, though, about the modern reality for independent creators. They can no longer just be writers or researchers. They must operate as high-level media strategists.
You have to wear a lot of hats.
You really do. You have to understand that an ecosystem requires different platforms for different functions. One platform incubates the idea, another builds the community, a third monetizes the IP, and a fourth archives the long-form version. The creators who succeed are the ones who understand how to wire those different digital architectures together into a cohesive machine.
It is a radical departure from the old, rigid fortress of traditional publishing. We've traced how a simple digital message board evolved into a massive IP incubator capable of launching traditional careers. We looked at the mechanics of the 2020 blackout, where a community starved automated pipelines to enforce copyright protection, and we explored how the esoteric publishing world uses these focused communities to bypass the blind spots of modern retail algorithms, turning organic conversation into targeted market intelligence.
It is a profound demonstration of how the invisible structures of the internet dictate the visible art we consume. But analyzing that 2020 labor strike leaves us with a highly urgent question to consider.
What's that?
Well, we saw how the nosleep community successfully choked off the early TTS pipelines by locking down their forum. But as automated, AI-driven extraction tools become exponentially more advanced, their hunger for massive data sets of free human storytelling is only accelerating. Will the decentralized, community-enforced frameworks established in 2020 be resilient enough to protect the next generation of creators? Or are we inevitably heading toward an internet where the best independent fiction is forced to hide behind locked doors, paywalls, and private servers just to survive the algorithms?
Wow. That casts a pretty long shadow over the future of the digital campfire. We started by marveling at an open space where anyone could pull up a log and share a story in the dark. But if the woods are filled with algorithms waiting to strip mine the words right out of your mouth, the era of the open internet campfire might be drawing to a close. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the algorithms, look closely at the hidden structures of the media you consume, and we will see you next time.